Welcome to KMUZ Theater Talk. I'm your host, Ed Schoaps. KMUZ Theater Talk comes your way the first and third Fridays of the month with news and in-depth interviews about auditions and performances of plays and musicals running at theaters throughout the Mid-Willamette Valley. My first guests today are director Jeff Sanders, along with actors Quaye, Dydasco, and Chris Schoaps from the Tennessee Williams classic memory play, The GLASS MENAGERIE, opening May 9th at Pentacle Theatre in Salem. And later in today's program, I'll talk with Ken Long and actors Butch, Beall, and Casper Oliver from the Agatha Christie classic murder mystery, And Then There Were None, also opening May 9th at Albany Civic Theater. But first, let's dive into the KMUZ Theater Talk calendar for news about auditions and shows happening at your favorite Mid-Willamette Valley theaters. McMinnville and Newburgh area theaters, Gallery Theater in downtown McMinnville, Roald Dahl's Willy Wonka with music and lyrics by Leslie Bricusse and Anthony Newley is now on the Gallery Theater's main stage through May 25th. You can hear all about Willy Wonka in my interview with directors Travis and Kalina Morgan and two actors from the show on the KMUZ Theater Talk podcast. For show information and tickets, go to gallerytheater.org. On Newburgh's Penguin Productions outdoor stage this summer from July 24th through August 9th is Upon the King, written by William Shakespeare and conceived and adapted by Andrew Philpott. Upon the King is adapted from 8 of Shakespeare's greatest history plays, weaving one continuous story of England's crown as it passes from king to king through acts both noble and treacherous. From the 100 Years' War with France to the chaos of the War of the Roses, this play captures the triumphs, betrayals, and humanity behind the throne, as only Shakespeare and Andrew Philpott can tell it. For show information and tickets, go to the Penguins on Stage webpage. For Salem's greater area theaters, at Bridgetown Conservatory in Salem, see Bridgetown Salem Facebook page and the bridgetownconservatory.org website to sign up for triple threat classes and auditions, and for show information and tickets. At Center Stage Theatrics in Salem, registration is open for the 4th year of Camp Center Stage, a week-long overnight theater camp for middle school through high school students. You can learn more about the summer theater camp on our KMUZ Theater Talk podcast interview with Matthew Voisin. To sign up for Camp Center Stage or to apply to be a camp counselor, go to centerstagetheatrics.org. At Children's Educational Theater in Salem, CET's popular 2025 summer program classes start June 23rd and run through July 26th. There's still some spots open for 10th through 12th graders at cetsalem.org. At Kaiser Homegrown Theater, Waiting for Godot by Dave Hansen and directed by Linda Baker runs June 13th through 29th. In this play, filled with razor-sharp wit and absurd humor, Esther and Val, two perpetually overlooked understudies, find themselves trapped in the existential purgatory of the backstage, endlessly waiting for their chance to perform in Beckett's classic. As they bicker over art, life, and the elusive purpose of their existence, they unknowingly mirror the very play they're meant to understudy. For show information and tickets, go to KaiserHomegrownTheater.org and their Facebook page. At Pentacle Theatre in Salem, the Tennessee Williams classic The GLASS MENAGERIE comes to the Pentacle Theatre stage May 9th through 31st. Director Jeff Sanders and actors Chris Schoaps and Quaye Dydasco join me later to talk about the memory play that catapulted Williams from obscurity to playwriting fame. And on the Pentacle Theatre call board, director Jennifer Jimzewski is holding auditions July 19th for A Comedy of Tenors by Ken Ludwig. The show runs October 3rd through 25th. And Joe Dodge's acting workshop for adults 18 and older meets on Saturdays at Pentacle Theatre's rehearsal studio in downtown Salem. See the PentacleTheater.org website and Facebook page for tickets, audition information, and to sign up for acting workshops. At Struts and Frets Theater Company in Rickreall, Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream plays September 4th through 6th at the River's Edge Amphitheater in downtown Independence. Auditions for youth ensemble performers and technicians are now underway. Keep an eye on the Struts and Frets Facebook page for adult and youth ensemble casting announcements. See the Struts and Frets Facebook page for more information and reserve your tickets at eventbrite.com. The Theater 33 2025 New Plays Festival will once again happen at Willamette University in Salem this summer. Theater 33 will soon announce its summer festival lineup, and we'll bring that news to you as soon as we learn more. Watch theater33.org and their Facebook page for festival details. For the Stayton and Silverton area theaters, at Brush Creek Playhouse in Silverton, Jenny Trickett's Of Man and Mosquito, directed by Cade Miller, is on stage now through May 18th at the Little Red Playhouse on Silverton Road. This play is about one man's struggle to make sense of that ridiculous thing we call life. Join Colin as he navigates through life alongside his shallow, vain wife and free-spirited goth daughter, an eccentric jerk of a boss, and a slew of other unforgettable characters. Brush Creek is also updating its website. Take a peek at the new version through a link at brushcreekplayhouse.com. Go to brushcreekplayhouse.com and Facebook for show, ticket, and upcoming audition information. Playing at Spotlight Community Theater in downtown Stayton, Cliff Notes of Insanity, The Princess Bride in 30 Minutes or Less, and Other Fantastical Stories runs May 9th through 18th at the Spotlight in downtown Stayton. It's directed by Shannon Rempel. For show information, tickets, and upcoming audition details, go to spotlightct.com and Facebook. For the Albany and Corvallis area theaters, on stage at Albany Civic Theater May 9th through 24th is the Agatha Christie classic murder mystery, And Then There Were None. We'll hear more about this popular show from director Ken Long and actors Butch, Beall, and Casper Oliver later in today's program. On the Albany Civic Theater call board, for all you Edward Albee fans, auditions are coming up May 12th through 14th for his masterwork, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, directed by Sarah Roth. And auditions are coming up June 17th through 19th for Albany Civic's youth summer camp show, Shrek the Musical Jr. It's directed by Rebecca Douglas. For show information, tickets, and audition details, go to albanycivic.org and Facebook. At the Mid-Valley Musical Theater in Albany, auditions for Walt Disney's Tarzan the Musical with music by Phil Collins are June 7th and 8th. Performances are August 7th through 16th at the Albany Performing Arts Center. For show information, tickets, and audition details, go to mvmtheater.org and Facebook. From Mid-Valley Productions in Albany, the complete works of William Shakespeare, abridged, revised, again, is on stage now through May 11th at the Russell Tripp Performance Center at Lynn Benton Community College in Albany. You can learn more about this hilarious adaptation of the Bard's works from director Jeremy Clubb, along with actor Jacob Fritz and stage manager Miriam Anderson Taha on the KMUZ Theater Talk podcast. For show information and tickets, go to midvalleyproductions.org and Facebook. At the Majestic Theater in downtown Corvallis, Lerner and Lowe's My Fair Lady is on stage now through May 18th at the Majestic Theater. It's directed by Emily Farron with musical direction by Jim Martinez. On the Majestic Theater call board, As You Like It, Shakespeare's wonderful romance play set in the Forest of Arden, will be staged in the outdoor amphitheater at Starker Arts Park in Corvallis, July 12th and 13th. It's directed by Harriet Owen Nixon. For show information, tickets, and audition details, go to majestic.org and Facebook. For the Mid-Valley Colleges and Universities, Chemeketa Community College's Theater Under the Stars presents Disney's Mary Poppins, July 29th through August 7th at the Jerry Frank Amphitheater in Salem's Riverfront Park. The show is directed by Stephen Munshaw and choreographed by Christopher Dean. For more information, email smunshaw@chemeketa.edu or call 503-836-2266. At Western Oregon University in Monmouth, WOU's theater season winds up May 28th through 31st with Tiny Beautiful Things, directed by Risa Fleming. Based on the best-selling book by Cheryl Strayed and adapted for the stage by Nia Vardalos, it's based on the questions and answers that Sugar, struggling writer Cheryl Strayed, published online from 2010 through 2012 when she took over an unpaid, anonymous job as an advice columnist. Tiny Beautiful Things is a play about reaching when you're stuck, healing when you're broken, and finding the courage to take on questions that have no answers. For show information and tickets, go to the wou.edu theater page or see their Facebook page. At Mid-Valley High Schools, Central High School in Independence is on Facebook and chsperformingarts.net. The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson musical, runs May 8th through 17th on the Central High School stage. Adapted from the bestseller by Rick Riordan and featuring an original rock score, The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson musical, is an action-packed mythical adventure worthy of the Greek gods. Dallas High School is at dhstheater.org and on Facebook at Dallas High School Thespians. And Then They Came for Me by playwright James Still will be on stage May 7th through 10th at the Dallas High Theater. At Salem area high schools, McKay High School is on Facebook at McKay Thespians. McKay's spring show is Almost Maine, and it runs May 16th through 24th. And you can get tickets at the door. Watch their Facebook page for more show information. McNary High School is on Facebook at Ken Collins Theater. Peter and the Starcatcher is on stage May 14th through 17th at McNary's Ken Collins Theater. And North Salem High School is at nshstheater.com and on Facebook at NSHS Theater. Paragon Springs, Stephen Dietz's vibrant and often funny reimagining of Henrik Ibsen's An Enemy of the People, runs through May 3rd at North Salem High School. Failure, a love story by Philip Dawkins, comes to the North Salem High Stage May 22nd through 24th. Tuneful songs and a whimsical chorus follow the story of the three Fail sisters, Nellie, Jenny June, and Gertie, as they live out their lives above the family clock repair shop near the Chicago River, before their time unexpectedly runs out. It's a magical musical fable where the power of love is far greater than anyone's successes or failures. At South Salem High School, which is on Facebook and Instagram at Salem Drama, the spring show at South Salem High School is the classic courtroom drama 12 Angry Jurors, and it runs May 15th through 17th. At Sprague High School, their Student One-Act Festival happens May 15th through 17th. At West Salem High School, at westsalemdrama.com and on Facebook at West Salem Drama Department, Shakespeare favorite Twelfth Night is on West Salem stage now through May 3rd. Twelfth Night is a comedy about a love triangle, requited and unrequited, romantic and familial, filled with illusion, deception, disguises, madness, and the extraordinary things that love will cause us to do and to see. And that's a wrap for today's KMUZ Theater Talk calendar for plays and auditions at your favorite theaters. If your Mid-Willamette Valley Theater has a play or audition coming up that's not on our calendar, please send it our way at kmuztheatertalk@gmail.com. Coming up after the break, I talk with director Jeff Sanders and actors Quaye, Dydasco, and Christopher Schoaps from the Glass Menagerie, the classic memory play by Tennessee Williams, coming to Pentacle Theatre in Salem. Stick around. We'll be back right after this. KMUZ's Pledge Drive is right around the corner. You know, KMUZ Theater Talk and KMUZ FM both rely on the support of our listeners and sponsors. Because you enjoy listening to KMUZ Theater Talk on your commercial-free, all-volunteer community radio station, we invite you to go now to kmuz.org and click the Donate button. And don't forget to say that KMUZ Theater Talk sent you. And thanks a million for your support. My next guests on KMUZ Theater Talk are director Jeff Sanders and actors Chris Schoaps and Quaye Dydasco from the Pentacle Theatre production of a fantastic classic play by Tennessee Williams, The Glass Menagerie. It plays May 9th through 31st at Pentacle Theatre. Welcome to KMUZ Theater Talk, guys.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I have so much respect for you, Jeff, for bringing this show to the theater. It's a beautiful play. It's done a lot at the high school level, but it's not done as often at community theaters and regional theaters. Why did you decide to bring the Glass Menagerie to the Pentacle Theater stage?
Well, it's interesting. It's true that it has taken a place in our high school theater program and less so, although it has been revived recently rather well. The English revived our plays much more often than we do. They seem to always have a Tennessee Williams production running. One of the reasons I selected this show was that I had one of my early theater experiences at a production of it. At a thespian conference and fell in love with the show, studied the script, wrote a synopsis of the script that my mother read and thought I was writing about our family. I got in trouble for that. And I've always wanted an opportunity to work on this script, to bring it to life. The Pentacle environment lends itself to a certain sort of intimate theater that I think Glass Menagerie can be really well suited for.
Tell me a little bit about the background for this show. This was Tennessee Williams' first play, and it almost didn't happen.
Right. It was his first that actually made it to Broadway. He'd had a huge failure a few years earlier with what eventually became The Fugitive Kind. Yeah, Glass Menagerie opened in the mid-40s, right around the end of World War II. It was based on sketches and things that he had written earlier about their life in St. Louis in the mid-1930s when he was living with his mother and his sister and working in a shoe factory.
So this is largely, like many of Tennessee Williams' plays, largely biographical.
It is. And in fact, I was reading some biographies of Tennessee Williams, which is what got me re-interested in the show. And I thought about the Glass Menagerie. And I mean, I knew that it was autobiographical, but I wasn't aware of how very much autobiographical it is and how the surface elements play very cozily in a high school, very comfy. But the stuff that's going on that isn't actually there in the script is clearly happening as well. And those are things that we can bring to light more clearly in a community theater or regional theater.
Tell our audience a little bit about the social background and historic background of this play. Why is that important in this time?
Well, he is writing about a number of things. On a grand scale, he's looking at fascism, which was an important concept that was being looked at the time, especially as we went up to World War II. And then when the play finally opened on Broadway, we had just ended World War II. So we were pretty clear on where we were with fascism. On a personal level, the play is very much about his sister and how her social difficulties and cognitive issues weren't addressed in a way that was helpful. And finally, Edwina, his mother, who Amanda in the play is based on, had Rose treated when she was treated with shock therapy, which was common at the time. And she was treated finally with a lobotomy. And the play was written shortly after that happened. And Tennessee Williams had clearly felt a great deal of guilt about his lack of involvement in what finally happened, his not having done more to stop it.
Yeah, nearly 100 years ago, psychiatric and medical professions were, how do I put it, more medieval than they are today.
Yes, yes.
And especially, in terms of things like lobotomy, which have been a topic of several plays, although it's not expressed here in this script.
Right.
It's good background to know that the kinds of challenges that the people in William's family and portrayed here in Tom's family on this stage make it difficult.
Exactly, yes.
Well, he invented something called a memory play. Tell us a little bit about what that means, Jeff.
I can't actually be positive what he meant by when he used it, but it gives us a certain freedom of convention away from more traditional lights on, lights off. You're in a realistic room here versus things can happen in a little more dreamlike fashion. You can visit events, and he visits events sometimes, and it's clear that he's glossing over some of the harsher truths of it. And we let him do it. He creates a beautiful shine on it.
I think when people tell stories, I don't think anyone that I have ever heard tell a story that I've heard before tells it exactly the same way.
Exactly.
That's part of what a memory play is.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
your own interpretation of the real things that happen in your life and why they were important for you. Well, Christopher Schoaps is my son. I'm very proud of Christopher because he's a very fine actor. That's all I'm going to say at this point.
Yes, indeed.
But I just want our listening audience to know that I have a small stake in this production. So, Christopher, tell us a little bit about your character, Tom, and his interpretation of fact in this production, his clinging to the idea of a memory play.
A large part of Tennessee Williams' plays being autobiographical as they are, Tom, is representative of him.
Also named Tom.
Yes, also named Tom. The play is from his memory of events, and I think he's clearly very well aware of that fact and how it skews things. I think he uses the fact that it is memory to sort of soothe himself, I suppose, in a lot of ways, because the play revolves so heavily around the theme of guilt and how he's trying to process the grief that he is feeling about his sister and having left his family. It's interesting when he recalls events, because it's very easy to look back on his scenes with Amanda in particular, who is representative of Tennessee's mother, Edwina, and look at them in a textual fashion. I mean, sort of view them as negative and like they're just arguing and like these people hate each other. When really Tennessee himself intended them to be more like vaudevillian in nature. So they sort of take on, at least with Jeff's directing style, they take on this positive quality that I think is inherently there in the show. You do have to kind of search to find it. But I think that being sort of an undertone, even in all of the tragedy that does end up ensuing, reflective of how Tom, at least as a character, would like to be able to look back at this in some sort of positive manner, wishing that it had been different, wishing that it didn't end up turning out like it had.
Don't you think the reason that Tom behaves that way or feels that way is because he had literally no control over how his mother was trying to direct his sister's life in a way that was impossible to reconcile in the end?
Yes, yeah, there's a lot of frustration from him in how Amanda does treat Laura. I mean, she's constantly portrayed as this character who does not understand her daughter at all and who wishes her daughter was a completely different person, or has this idea of her daughter that she could be different when really she is the way that she is. And, there are certain aspects of her that are not going to change. And it's very clear to Tom the way that Laura is, but to Amanda, it's not. And that frustration is a driving point of I think, Tennessee Williams writing the play, is not to completely blame his mother for everything that went on, but sort of,
Yeah.
Right. But he clearly takes on his own load too.
He does. His guilt is so palpable throughout the entire script, particularly in the ending speech that he has.
We have this family unit all banded together, and they can't even communicate with each other effectively. It's really fascinating. They love each other. The play is actually quite warm.
Yeah.
Often through the play, and funny, which is what makes the tragedy a little more poignant.
Quaye, let's talk a little bit about the character Laura, who is Tom's little sister. Laura has several problems that she's trying to face in her life, not the least of which is her overbearing mother, but she also has a physical problem that has been limiting her life. Tell us a little bit about Laura and her importance in this pathway for the family.
Yeah, Laura, she deals with a lot of stuff, and it's been really interesting to navigate all that she struggles through because not only does she have her physical defect, but she has a debilitating shyness. She doesn't do well in social situations, and she constantly avoids reality, and she obviously struggles mentally. It's hard to say exactly with what, and it's hard to say exactly with what for her autobiographical counterpart too, Rose, because it was hard to diagnose people back then. So with Laura, there's just so much that makes her so dynamic. And what I've really tried to find is to not how does she use those and how do those affect her? Because she has shyness, but maybe that's also caused by her physical defect, her limp. And so I think there's a lot of factors that go into her shyness, but then she also really struggles at home. Her family is financially struggling. I mean, how does that really affect her as a person? Does she evade it? They don't have a father figure in the house, which has been mentioned a couple times. And so there's a lot that goes into her that she really struggles with. And she kind of evades those. She doesn't really deal with them. And instead, she finds her solace in like her glass animals and her records that she plays.
Well, what is Laura's relationship with the mother, Amanda, played by Juliana Gibbons?
Mm-hmm.
What is Laura's relationship with the mother like?
I think she really wants to please her mother and make sure that everything is okay. I think there are many scenes where Laura tends to be the people pleaser, right? There's a scene where the mother finds something out. Laura's been hiding something, and Laura tries to comfort her mother in her own way and make it seem as though it's not that bad. I think she has that kind of relationship with her mother. She really tries in her own way. I'm not sure she really succeeds, and I'm not sure she really knows how to comfort her mother, but she tries.
Well, Amanda is super focused on finding Laura a partner, which is more important to Amanda than it is to Laura at this point.
Right.
But the idea of a gentleman caller is a Southern thing.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that so important? And how does Laura feel about that?
Well, it's so important because the mother has really tried everything. She tries to bring her daughter into social situations. She tries to bring Laura to church. She tries to get Laura into school. And Amanda really finds that it's difficult to find something that will work, and time is running out. Tom has other aspirations. And so she's like, okay, what can I do? She's like, okay, maybe a boyfriend, maybe a gentleman caller, because that is what Amanda is used to. That's the kind of way that she grew up. And so I think she tries to impress that onto Laura. And I don't think Laura really knows how to navigate that world. It's not something she's really exposed to. I think she's seen it and knows, but doesn't really think of herself as capable. She doesn't really know how to flirt yet. Maybe she'll figure it out, but.
Well, Jeff, as the director, the gentleman caller is the fulcrum around which this play turns.
Yes.
Is this a plot device that is relevant in today's world, and how so?
Chris, what does a gentleman caller represent?
He represents both security for Laura, for sure, and also for Amanda, at least, like a mental security of knowing that her child is taken care of. Also represents an escape pathway for Tom, because if his sister is taken care of, Amanda is very clear that once his sister is taken care of, that he's free to do whatever he wants.
No, I think that's really good. I mean, Tom has a stake in this, right, Chris?
Yes.
He is working in a crappy job. He's secretly stashing a little bit of his paycheck away so that he can get the hell out of Dodge. But he can't do that until he helps solve some of the problems in his family. Tell us a little bit about his struggle with this.
At the time, because his father is completely out of the picture, he just left 16 years ago. By the time the play takes place, he is the sole provider, being the only man in the house at the time, in the 1930s, working this crappy job that he doesn't care for at a shoe factory. He, has to squirrel himself away in the washrooms every chance he can just to work on poetry is his real, one of his real aspirations. At that point, he finds his only vehicle of escape to be finding his place in the Union of Merchant Seamen, because that removes him so far away from where he feels like he is completely trapped. But he also feels some semblance of guilt of turning out just like his father and leaving his mother and sister with no one to take care of them. So he does, at least try to fix that a little bit, at least fix the sense of guilt that he gets out of it by bringing someone over to meet Laura to appease his mother.
He takes his best shot.
He does. And he does describe the gentleman caller in the opening speech as the long delayed but always expected something that we live for.
And that's always relevant.
Yeah, he represents that for all three of them, because Amanda has been waiting for someone to take care of her daughter. Laura has been waiting for someone to save her from the situation a little bit. Tom has also been waiting for someone to save him from the situation, albeit in a slightly different way, but maybe not an altogether that different way than Amanda and Laura have in mind.
Yeah, this is a big, big challenge when you've got everything pushing at you from all directions. Jeff, why is the time period that this play is set in important?
Well, it's set in the 1930s. America was in the middle of a rather nasty depression. The economy had completely exploded and crumbled. Things were beginning to be built back, but slow. And we've got a family in St. Louis with no real father figure contributing, who had actually lived a rather gentrified life before, are now living in a tenement in St. Louis.
And times are hard. Times are hard for everyone.
And times are hard. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And it's also a time when America was worried about the things going on in Europe, which is referenced a number of times. They talk about Franco. They reference Guernica. The rise of fascism is a very present theme in the show in this time period.
So how relevant do you think this is to life today here in the U.S.?
Well, I think that a look at our anti-fascist roots is never a bad idea. And I think the play tells it in such a way that something that big isn't even the point you're going to come away with, really. It's a warm and personal family drama.
Well, tell us, Quaye, what you hope the audience is going to come away with when the lights go down. What are they going to be talking about in the car on the way home?
That's a really good question. I hope that they are able to really understand where each character is coming from. I think there's a lot of opposing views in this family, and it really comes to a head when the gentleman caller gets there and later on in the play. And so I really just hope that they see a family that they can relate to in some way. I mean, it's a very sad family, but in some ways, the mother really does want what's best for her children. She's not naive. I think she's actually very realistic at various points in the play. And she not only wants what's best for her children, but I think she knows her children a lot better than her children may think as well. And so I hope people just find someone that they relate to in the show and understand that. Also, from Tom's perspective, I mean, he's putting his best foot forward for what he saw of his family and how he wants his family to be remembered as well, which is a really interesting view.
And Chris, what do you hope the audience is going to remember from this family drama?
Well, I hope that they can, sort of like Quaye was saying, be able to understand the perspective of not only Tom, who is the narrator, but everyone in the show, how their upbringing affected them. A reminder in how to empathize with people, no matter how they're acting in the moment. A reminder to empathize with your fellow human being is always important.
Since Juliana is not here, I wanted to say a word on behalf of Amanda, because it can sound like she's being presented as a monster, and that's absolutely not the case. She is one of the most complicated characters in American theater. Her motivations are deep and strange and entirely motivated. Yeah, she loves her children, but she is what she is. And she's trying hard, but again, she is what she is.
And so, or what do you hope that the audience is going to understand and appreciate in this show? And what are they going to take away from it in your mind?
The moments in theater that I value the most are when I'm sitting there with a bunch of people. I'm watching an actor on stage and I feel a flash of, oh my God, that's me. When I recognize some part of myself being portrayed, something that I've never told anybody, something that was my personal action, thought, or whatever. And here I am in a community of people. And we're all having these moments together. And this play is chock full of those kinds of moments. It's so recognizable. The characters are so alive and human and complicated, and their motives are not pure. It's not that kind of theater.
Well, folks, the Tennessee Williams classic, The Glass Menagerie, comes to Pentacle Theatre May 9th through 31st. This is one of my favorite playwrights. Tennessee Williams shows are always really rewarding, and this one is special for our times today. It's a memory play that catapulted Williams from obscurity to playwriting fame. And I've been talking with director Jeff Sanders and actors Christopher Schoaps and Quaye Dydasco about the Glass Menagerie. The show also features Juliana Gibbons as Amanda and Jonathan Hounhoot, who plays Jim Delaney O'Connor, the gentleman caller. Thank you so much, Jeff, Chris, and Quaye, for joining me here to talk about the Glass Menagerie on KMUZ Theater Talk.
Thank you, Ed. It's so much fun to be here.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Coming up next, Agatha Christie's classic murder mystery, And Then There Were None, is coming soon to Albany Civic Theater. Director Ken Long and actors Butch, Beall, and Casper Oliver join me to talk about it right after this short break. Hi, Ed Schoaps here, host of KMUZ Theater Talk. Now, I know you love hearing about shows and auditions at your favorite Mid-Valley theaters, or you wouldn't be listening to KMUZ Theater Talk right now. And that's why I'm asking you to go to kmuz.org today and hit the donate button to support KMUZ Theater Talk and your all-volunteer, commercial-free, nonprofit community radio station. The KMUZ Spring Pledge Drive happens May 10th through 17th, but you can make a one-time donation or become a monthly sustaining donor anytime at kmuz.org. It's up to you when you donate, and whatever fits your budget. And thanks a million for supporting KMUZ FM and KMUZ Theater Talk. Today's next guests on KMUZ Theater Talk are the director and two cast members from Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. Performances at Albany Civic are May 9th through the 24th, and this is one of those classic Agatha Christie mysteries, folks. And welcome to you, Director Ken Long and actors Butch, Beall, and Casper Oliver. Welcome to KMUZ Theater Talk.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you.
And Then There Were None is an Agatha Christie classic. Ken, what brought you to this show?
Traditionally, I do musicals here at ACT, and I haven't done a show here in about 4 years, so I wanted to do something more traditional that is fairly easy to direct. So I decided to pick, and I'm into murder mysteries lately, so I decided to pick, obviously, the queen of murder mystery, an Agatha Christie show. And Then There Were None is probably one of the number one shows that she's ever written. So I was intrigued by that and wanted to bring more traditional murder mystery back to ACT.
Well, this plot involves 10 strangers that are brought to a remote island by invitation. And the only thing they have in common is that they're not really very good people, but someone has brought them there because they have their fate in mind. Tell us a little bit about Agatha Christie's plot for this show.
Yeah, so Agatha Christie wrote the show that they pick 10 strangers that are invited to this isolated island that all have questionable past or committed murder in the past, and they're all slowly being killed off based on a 1600s nursery rhyme called 10 Little Soldier Boys, and they're all being killed in order by the way the poem was written. And then they're accusing each other of the crime, and they're trying to figure out who the murderer actually is before they all die off.
Butch, your character is William Blore. Tell us a little bit about him and his importance in this tale.
He was brought to the island because he supposedly had wrongfully got somebody put away. And
you mean in prison?
Yes, he got him put away, and the guy ended up dying there. So I'm being questioned on that, on my involvement in that. And I'm just a detective, and a cop. And I was brought to the island on the pretext of I'm supposed to watch the people who were in the house party and keep an eye on them and guard some valuables or whatever. And then I get caught up in it.
But you're as at risk as some of the other characters are.
Oh, yeah. Nobody's not at risk.
Casper Oliver, your character is Rogers. Does he have a partner in this?
He does. Yes, he has a partner in life and a partner in crime, and they are both his wife. So Thomas and Ethel Rogers are brought to this island as they are to work this house party. And Rogers is the butler and Mrs. Rogers is the cook. And they are both brought here under the accusation that they were involved somehow in the death of their former employer. So they are both just as much at risk as everyone else. And them being kind of the house staff puts them in a kind of classic murder mystery, did the butler do it? So there's kind of that inherent distrust to Mr. and Mrs. Rogers as well. That makes it very interesting as all the characters start to really pull each other apart and accuse each other and figure out who's safe and who's not.
Ken, how clearly do the characters in this show telegraph their concerns, their fears, their guilt to the audience?
Projected very well. In fact, some of them don't think they're guilty of a crime. Some of them think the crime they committed had a good reason to commit the crime. So they project that throughout the show, and this cast does a really, really good job of pulling that off.
Tell our listeners how this show is staged. Do you have a complete unit set? Is it a drawing room mystery kind of set, or do you have something different?
No, it's a basic one-room set, traditional Agatha Christie. In fact, part of this, what we've chose to do this show is to do it very traditional Agatha Christie as it was originally written in 1939. Many versions of the show, Agatha Christie rewrote the ending in 1943 to be a more enlightened ending, a happier ending. And that is what's done mostly by everybody these days for several reasons. One, there's a hanging on the original version that happens on stage, and that's pretty dark, and not too many people want to do that. But we're going to attempt to pull that off.
So you're going back to the original staging of this show.
That's correct. Originally how Agatha Christie wrote the book in 1939.
What compelled you to do that? What's your vision as opposed to doing something that's more traditionally done?
We felt when we read through the script that the version that most people do cheats the story of Then There Were None, because actually two people survive that. And the 1939 version leaves you with the version of why it's called what it is.
I see. So is the host revealed by the end of the show?
It is, yes.
But we want that to be a surprise, of course.
Yeah, we're not going to give that away right now because that's a whole murder mystery, right?
Casper, your character as Rogers and his wife, are the two of you working together to prove your innocence, or is there a point where they maybe turn?
As you go through the beginning where you meet all the characters and start to figure out why they're there and what accusations are made, early on you see very much a closeness between Rogers and his wife. And as everything's revealed, there's very much a point where Rogers has to step up and carry the we did not commit this crime that we are being accused of. And whether or not they actually did is a different story, but they are very good at their job and they are professionals, and they would never harm their employer or their guests. And there comes a point in the show where at least Rogers loses a bit of his will to prove that innocence and is just kind of focusing on surviving. But as for Mrs. Rogers, well, she ends up handling things a bit differently.
Butch, your character, the detective, William Bloor, how many different clues does this guy have to analyze in order to come to the root of this story?
being a detective, I'm looking at all the angles, and at some point I accuse everybody, except for maybe a couple.
That must make you a popular guest.
Yeah, I do have a nemesis, yes. But I just go through it. I look at the facts, and this is the person who I think did it at this point. Then, of course, because you lose people, next thing you know, okay, I got to think of somebody else. Now who did it? But I'm accusatory pretty much through the whole thing. But I do have one guy that's my favorite, one character that's my favorite that I accuse.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That sounds ominous and funny at the same time. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
So, Ken, what do you hope audiences are going to take away from this show?
Well, I want them to enjoy Agatha Christie as originally written. Even if you know the show inside and out, it's different because of how it's written to the original form. And the ending of this show is so impactful that you need to watch it just for the last 10 minutes of this show. It will leave you emotional and a lot to think about. So that's what I hope the audience takes away from thought and think about their own lives and how they affect people.
So this show was written just at the beginning of the Second World War in 1939. Was Agatha Christie also reflecting something about the society and the rumble of war in this show as well?
My thought is yes. I believe through multiple different characters, like there's accusations that involve characters who made decisions during wartime that may or may not have been for the best. And there are references to making decisions that one would view for survival when it's certainly not the first choice that should have been made. And there's a lot of tension between different social groups within the show. And well, like the groups that the different characters are coming from, I should say. And if you go into the show knowing when it takes place, I do think you could see a bit of Agatha Christie's commentary on that through some of the characters and how they are condemned.
Ken, since this is set in the era, tell me a little bit about the costumes and the set design that are contributing to the authentic look of the show.
So we decided to do this show based in the 30s. So the costuming is all set in 1930 attire. The set is built as an old English mansion on a hilltop Agatha Christie traditionally wrote this show for.
Ken, a lot of audience members are going to think, oh, it's Agatha Christie. This is a show for my 6-year-old. But there's a note on the website that says this show contains violence, smoking, alcohol use, depictions of self-harm, stage weapons, loud sound effects. How important is this for the age of audience members who may think about attending this show?
I think all those references and all those warnings people need to take into consideration.
What do you think is an appropriate age range?
I would say 10 and over. A lot of people under that age would never understand the dialogue. In today's age, a lot of kids are exposed to that stuff on their Netflix, games, and all that stuff. So that might not be as much of an issue as it was 20 years ago. Every parent has to make a decision. I think more about dialogue and the content and how understanding the play is more important than the warnings.
Well, folks, this is an exciting show. And Then There Were None, the classic murder mystery by Agatha Christie. The performances are May 9th through 24th at Albany Civic Theater. You can go to albanycivic.org for more information about the show and to reserve your tickets. I want to thank our guests, director Ken Long, and actors Butch, Beall, and Casper Oliver for joining me here today on KMUZ Theater Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, it's time to wind up today's KMUZ Theater Talk program, and thanks a million for listening. KMUZ Theater Talk comes your way at 9 a.m. the first and third Friday of the month on KMUZ at 100.7 and 88.5 FM. Also on KMWV FM Dallas at 98.3 HD2 and streaming worldwide at kmuz.org and on the KMUZ mobile app. If you'd like to share this program with your friends and hear more behind the curtain interviews, open your favorite podcast app and subscribe to KMUZ Theater Talk I'll be back May 16th with a brand new KMUZ Theater Talk program. Meanwhile, see the KMUZ Theater Talk Facebook page for news and updates about live theater in the Mid-Willamette Valley. Next Friday at 9 a.m. on KMUZ 100.7 FM, you can hear Talking About Art with Joel Zack. KMUZ Theater Talk is proud to partner with the Mid-Valley Theater Network and Press Play Salem. Until next time, I'll see you in the front row.